Hello everyone, this is Cody, and today on AstroBlender I'm bringing you another episode of Backfocus 101. Now today is essentially part 2 of 2 of my Celestron C9.25, C11, and C14 backfocus series. So in part 1 we looked at attaching a basic DSLR or a basic deep sky imaging setup and getting to those proper backfocus requirements. Today I'm going to be showing you how to go a little bit more in depth in this process with a more complex imaging train. So I'm going to be showing how to attach a monochrome deep sky imaging camera, a filter wheel, and a Celestron Off-Axis Guider, along with all the spacers that you need, and still obtaining that 146 millimeters of backfocus, because that does not change. So essentially we're going to be going from this to this. Now I'm going to go piece by piece through this and show you how I get to the 146 millimeters that you need. So let's get started. Now there are several reasons why so many people love the Celestron Off-Axis Guider, including myself. And this isn't a review of this Off-Axis Guider, but there are definitely a couple things I want to mention. The first, it has a very large prism. So if you use a guide camera with a large sensor, it's like a match made in heaven. It makes finding stars so much easier compared to other off-axis guider setups. The other thing is, it's really designed for the Schmidt-Cassegrain and EdgeHD series, so it comes with a bunch of different adapters to help get you there. So you're going to get various M42 and M48 spacers that are different lengths. You're going to get several actual attachments that attach your equipment to the off-axis guider, and so it just comes with a lot of adapters. This is just a very, very small sampling of what you get, and well, this one I actually bought, but I'll talk about that in a second. But it just is very easy to attach to several different kinds of telescopes. Now it is a bit thick, so it doesn't work for all, but that's really why it's so useful on the EdgeHD. So let's go ahead and get going with the imaging train here, and I'll explain which adapters I'm using and why. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, I actually purchased this part, and this is a Celestron large off-axis guider adapter. You can see just how big that hole is. It was obviously designed for full-frame cameras. Now, the one the off-axis guider comes with is quite a bit smaller, and you may see some vignetting with your full-frame cameras. But it's actually not the reason I bought it. I don't own a full-frame camera, so why would I care to get this one? Well, it's actually in the way it attaches. So basically, if you take your original visual back and you unthread the back just to expose the locking nut, this is going to give you 12.7 millimeters of back focus right here. And then the original adapter is going to attach to that, and that's 25.3 millimeters. So all in all, you're going to get 38 millimeters of back focus here. This part is also 38 millimeters thick. So essentially, it's removing one threaded attachment and just going with a solid piece. And that's why I went with it, was because I figured, hey, if I can get rid of a threaded connection point, I totally will do that. And it future-proofs my camera in case I ever get a full frame. So they both will give you 38 millimeters, whichever one you use. I just like this part better because it's just one less thing to thread. Now, just as a reminder from part 1, whether you use the Celestron focal reducer or whether you don't, the back focus requirements stay the same, and that's one of the really nice things about this optical system. So I like to use my focal reducer, so I'm going to leave that, and then we're just going to remove the visual back to expose those large 3.25 inch Schmidt-Cassegrain threads, just like we did in part 1. So let's go ahead and do that. Now this next step, it's smart to align your pick-off prism, at least initially, with your camera before you move on. So what I like to do is just unthread my helical focuser from my off-axis guider completely. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line up my off-axis guider with the prism over the sensor. And you don't want to do this on the vertical side, you want to do this on the horizontal side. Now if you have a square sensor, obviously it doesn't matter, but the reason you want to do it on the horizontal part of your sensor is so that you can push in your pick-off prism further. So I'm just holding it over the top here, and I definitely can move my pick-off prism in a little bit. So I'm just going to take my hex wrench here and undo this little locking bolt, and then I'm just going to look right down on top of this and push in my prism. Okay, So I'm almost to the edge of the sensor there. I don't want to go too far though, because I don't want to create a shadow on the sensor. And so this is good for just an initial spot. What you want to do is once you've got everything installed, play with this at night, make sure you don't have any shadows on the side of your images or anything like that. Otherwise you need to back up your prism. Okay, so now that I have the pick-off prism adjusted to where I want it, at least initially, now I just need to install the off-axis guider to the imaging train. I will warn you though, you want to make sure that you get the pick-off prism's orientation correct, otherwise it's not going to work. So you always want the flat wall of the prism to be facing the telescope. You never want the angled side, or the hypotenuse I guess you could say, to be facing the telescope. So just make sure that flat wall is what's facing the telescope, and then the angled side is facing the camera. So to install this, I'm just going to loosen the thumb screws and then add it to the adapter here. And you can really install this with any orientation you want. That's just another plus for the Celestron Off-Axis Guider. And then you're just going to tighten the thumb screws once you have it where you want it. Now this is going to add another 29 millimeters of back focus to the imaging train. So just like that, with the adapter at 38 millimeters and the off-axis guider at 29, we're already at 67 millimeters of back focus. Now, as I've mentioned, the Celestron off-axis guider does come with a lot of parts and adapters. This is the 48 millimeter male adapter ring. It's basically what allows the rest of your equipment to attach to the off-axis guider. Now, I use the 48 millimeter ring because I like to use bigger threads when I can, and I use a 48 millimeter T-ring with my DSLR. Now, they do include a 42 millimeter version of this ring as well, so whichever one you want, you can go with. Now, to attach this, you simply undo the thumb screws. Now make sure you use the right ones. You don't want your off-axis guider to fall to the ground. And then just push this up nice and snug and re-tighten down those thumb screws. This is going to add an additional 12.5 millimeters of back focus to the imaging train. So just like that, I'm already at 79.5 millimeters of back focus. The next part of the Celestron off-axis guider kit I'm using is the male M48 medium spacer ring. Now, this is a fairly typical ring, but it's a very precise length. It is 11.55 millimeters long. So I'm just going to attach that real quick here. And what you'll notice, once that's attached, we have 91.05 millimeters of back focus now. And if you remember from part 1, that is the exact length that the Celestron T adapter was, meaning we just have 55 millimeters of back focus to go. Now, speaking of the Celestron EdgeHD T adapter, it's really fun to compare the length of your current imaging train to the T adapter. And if you do that, you'll see they are the exact same length. You can even test that with calipers if you want. But you have 91.05 millimeters here, and you have 91.05 millimeters here. And that's really why the Celestron off-axis guider is designed to go with these scopes, is because it gets you that exact back focus you need. So we just need that 55 millimeters, as I've mentioned, which is that industry gold standard. Now, what if I don't want to use a filter wheel or a monochrome camera, but I still want to use the off-axis guider? Well, that's easy enough. I can just put the 48 millimeter T-ring on my DSLR and then thread it onto the imaging train. And this is going to give me the remaining 55 millimeters of back focus that I need, and I'm basically done at that point. Now, most people don't like their DSLR upside down, so this is another nice feature about the off-axis guider, is it also serves as a rotator as well. So I can rotate this up if I want to, or even better, you can also rotate the entire unit as a whole. So if you like the orientation that your pick-off prism and your sensor have and you want to keep that alignment, you can adjust the whole unit together as one to keep that alignment the same. So there's just a lot of really cool features on this off-axis guider, and it's just a really clever design. With that said, you could also swap out the DSLR for just your basic deep sky imaging setup that I covered in part 1. But that's not what I'm doing today. I want to show you how I attach a filter wheel and a monochrome camera. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove my DSLR here and get back to the imaging train. So now that that tangent is aside and discussed, let's go ahead and get back to the imaging train here. Now, my filter wheel and my camera take up a big chunk of back focus, but not quite enough. So I do need to add another spacer. Now, this one came with my camera. It's a 16.5 millimeter spacer, But what's unique about it is it has female 48mm threads and male 42mm threads. So essentially what it's doing is it's converting my 48mm threads to 42mm threads. This is perfect though because my filter wheel is 42mm. So I'm just going to go ahead and thread this on here. And then that is going to give me an additional 16.5mm of back focus. Now this is my ZWO Electronic Filter Wheel. It's going to add 20mm of back focus to the imaging train. And as I mentioned, it's 42mm threaded. So now that we have 42mm threads, it'll work perfectly. However, I don't recommend threading something so heavy directly on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the male adapter ring, and then I'm going to thread these into the filter wheel and then put it back on. Alright, so I'm just going to attach the filter wheel now, and again you can use whatever orientation you'd like. And then as I mentioned, this is 20mm thick, so we are adding 20mm of back focus to the imaging train. Now my imaging camera is the ZWO ASI 2600mm Pro. Now I don't use the word legit very often, but in this case, this camera is legit. With that large APS crop sensor and just some unreal specs, you can take some amazing monochrome images with this camera. But that's not what we're focused on today. We want to know how much back focus this camera takes up when we're using it. So the sensor to flange distance is 12.5mm, and this black tilt plate here adds another 5mm. So if you look at that from the side, you'll see 12.5mm here from sensor to flange, and an additional 5mm with that tilt plate. So the total back focus that this camera uses is 17.5mm. To attach this camera to my filter wheel, it's going to need male threads. And the filter wheel actually comes with a male-to-male adapter for that reason. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. And this is going to give me another 2mm of back focus. So I'm just going to put this on here, and then we're ready to put this on the filter wheel. Alright, so I'm ready to finish this thing off, so I'm just going to blow the dust off my protective window on my sensor. Just make sure I don't have any dust on my filter, and then I'm just going to thread it on. Alright, and there we have it. So let's go ahead and add up all the back focus. Adding up the back focus of this main imaging train should be quite the mouthful, but I'll give it a go. Now, before I do that, I just want to remind you that whether you use the reducer or not, the main imaging train doesn't change. So with that said, the main adapter here is 38mm, followed by the Off-Axis Guider, which is 29mm. Then we have the male adapter ring, which is 12.5mm. Then the medium spacer ring, and this is 11.55mm. Then I have my first camera spacer, and this is 16.5mm, followed by the filter wheel, which is 20mm. Then this very small male-to-male adapter, which is 2mm, and then the camera itself, which adds 17.5mm of back focus. So the entire system is 147.05mm. Now you might say, oh, he's 1mm too long. But if you remember, filters add a little bit of back focus to your system. So it's actually a good thing that I have that extra 1mm. So now my back focus requirements are correct. I'm ready to image, but I still need to set up my off-axis guider. So we'll just talk about that briefly. The first thing you want to consider when off-axis guiding is your guide camera. Now I use the ZWO ASI 174mm Mini. And the reason for that is the sensor is absolutely huge in this camera for the size of the body. I have no idea how ZWO fits such a large sensor in such a tiny camera, but it really complements the Celestron Off-Axis Guider nicely because this guider has such a large prism, and then this has such a large sensor. So they basically go together very, very well. In fact, if I didn't know any better, I would have thought that these two products were designed together. That's how well they complement each other. So the first thing I always do when off-axis guiding is I focus my main imaging camera or my main imaging train. So make sure your main imaging train is focused, and then put in your off-axis guider, get it secure like you normally would. I had to use extension tubes to get my guide camera to focus. So once those extension tubes are on there, then I just used the helical focuser to obtain focus. Now, the next thing you want to test for, whether you do this in daylight or at night, is up to you. Probably a little easier during the day, but you want to make sure that your pickoff prism does not shadow your sensor, as I mentioned earlier. So this is where adjusting the pickoff prism before you go outside is helpful, like I did. And then you can make very fine adjustments as you need to, retighten everything back up, and make sure that your pickoff prism is not affecting your main image. Once you have those, you got a guide star in your field of view, you're off to the races and you're ready to go. So off-axis guiding, it seems simple, but it actually can be pretty tricky. So practice is kind of key, but the other nice thing about off-axis guiding though is once you've got it set up and everything is kind of locked down, it pretty much just stays the same. So it doesn't require a lot of adjusting once you've initially set it up. Now this is Back Focus 101, so I wanted to bring it all together and just remind you that the key to off-axis guiding is that the main imaging train and the guiding train have the same back focus. It should be 146 millimeters in both cases, and that's why all of this works. So now you should have the knowledge to put together your own imaging train and your off-axis guider setup and go ahead and start imaging. Alright everyone, well that wraps up another episode of Back Focus 101, or mini-series in this case. Now I know this episode was a little bit more complicated, but if you watched both episodes, now you know how to attach a basic DSLR configuration, a basic deep sky camera configuration, or an advanced setup where you use an off-axis guider, a filter wheel, and a monochrome camera. So I hope you found this helpful and that I covered everything you need to know about the C9.25, C11, and C14 EdgeHD back focus. So as always, I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and clear skies.